You're listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast, and I'm your host, Abuja-based photographer Tavishima George Aide. As usual, the recap. On the last episode, we looked a little into posturing and transparency in the wedding industry. In other words, we looked at the idea of whether it's better to keep it real or should you fake it till you make it in the wedding industry. The key considerations that we were able to tease out were your brand positioning and your value proposition. So those are the ideas that you look into. How do you want to be seen, or who do you want to see you, who do you want to find you, and what are you selling? Okay, now today, for those of you who've been following from the very first episode, you realize that I am a disciple of the idea that we need personal sales to improve our business, to really take it to the next level, especially for those of us in the wedding industry. And some people have objections to those, and the most popular objection that I've heard so far, particularly from people who are engaged in the online space, who would like to promote the business in the online space, is that personal selling, the idea that you have to meet with people face to face in order to persuade them or to convince them to buy, that personal selling isn't scalable. It has lack of scalability. Now, what is scaling in business? The idea of scaling in business is pretty much the same idea as the one that we learned in primary school when we learned about math. So that's the idea of moving from 1 to 10, from 10 to 100, from 100 to 1,000, and so on and so forth. So if your business is going to be built on the back of you personally making sales and talking to people, then obviously scalability is going to be a problem. You're not going to be able to scale because there's a limit to how many people that I can talk to personally. So making the leap from 10 to 100 is going to be tough, and maybe even impossible to go from 100 to 1,000. Now, a likely scenario in point, recently I needed to have minor surgery done at the hospital, and so I was out of commission for a whole day during the work week. At the hospital that I use, surgeries are scheduled on Tuesdays, so basically for that day, Tuesday was out of the equation. So I'm in surgery equals to no sales done, and that's because of the stage that I'm at in the business, where having learned about personal sales recently and not having been able to work on other aspects of my business, that's the stage that I am right now, where I do most of the selling, meeting clients, calling clients, chatting with clients, stuff like that. So of course I have associates and people I'm affiliated with, like my video crew, other photographers, and yes, we all do selling on each other's behalf, but pretty much right now it's just me doing the selling for me. So obviously you can see that scalability is a problem, and that's what a lot of people say, that personal sales, no, not for me, that's not how I'm going to grow my business because it cannot scale. However, sales or your sales ability can scale when you fix other systems in your business. I'm not going to go into details in this, but for those of you who have read The E-Myth by, I think it's Michael Gerber, you'll be familiar with this whole idea that people come into business and they're in love with the idea of being a practitioner or being a technician. In other words, you come in and you're in love with baking cakes. In fact, that was, I think it was an E-Myth Revisited. That was the example that the fellow used. So you love baking wedding cakes and you decide to set up the business, but then after a while, it's not growing because there's a limit to the number of cakes that you can bake in a day. So if you read stuff like the E-Myth Revisited, the books in the E-Myth series, and you look for podcasts that deal with these sorts of things, you will be able to get the gist of what I'm trying to say here. That in a certain sense, there are certain key systems that you have to work on in your business, maybe like having a standard operating procedure, so that when you have employees, when you have other bakers, when you have other salespeople, other people know exactly what it is that you need to do to run the business. So let's stick with the cake example. If you have your standard operating procedures, the people who bake the cake that you employ to bake your cakes, they know the exact ingredients to use, how long to leave it in the oven. Well, I don't bake cakes, so I don't know what the key things are, but basically they know all those sorts of things, and then your salespeople know who you're looking for, how to talk to them, and that sort of thing. Now, if you're lacking in this area, there's a company in Abuja that deals with these sorts of things, and it's called a Growth Co. I think that's their handle on Instagram, Growth Co. Co as in company. Now, I met the founder of the Growth Co as part of the British Council, at part of the training that was organized by the British Council. I was the official photographer at the time, and I make it a good habit to keep in touch with everybody that I run into during events and other social occasions. So both of us have been friends for quite a bit. So check her out, and these are the sorts of problems that she likes to solve in her business. Now back to the main idea that I was alluding to. Now, sales and the ability, your sales ability can scale once you fix other things in your business. That's number one. And then the second thing is that regardless of whether you are convinced that personal selling can scale or not, you ought to practice personal selling now in these early days when you are small and when you can afford to speak to every single customer. Because when you do that, you're going to get deep insights and first-hand insights from the customer relationships that you are building. Now, from these insights, you're going to be able to tease out things that are key and important in your own sales process that you will now be able to use to train future people that you bring in to make sales. So yes, in the beginning, personal selling will help you scale in itself. But when you get to the stage when you've fixed other business, when you've solidified your business systems and you have standard operating procedures and all your employees know what it is that they're supposed to do, the fact that you made personal sales calls in the early days is going to be really influential in making you guys grow, because you'll have all the tips and the nuggets to tell your sales team that, no, these are the people that we're looking to. This is how you talk to these people. This is how you approach them. This is how you deliver the presentation. This is how you ask for the order. This is our customer service and our follow-up procedure, and on and on and on and on. So, you should practice personal selling now in these days that you're small, because your sales knowledge is going to help you yield fruit bountifully later on in the future when you have plugged all the leakages in your current business systems now. So thank you very much, guys, for listening. I'll catch you on the next episode, and as usual, for those of you who have any questions, comments, queries, or suggestions, you can hit me up at my email, ayede.taver@gmail.com. That is AYEDE.TAVER@gmail.com. That is A for Alpha, Y for Yankee, E for Echo, D for Delta, E for Echo, dot T for Tango, A for Alpha, V for Victor, E for Echo, R for Romeo @gmail.com. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. I'll catch you guys on the next episode.